Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another live broadcast of the Engadget podcast. I'm senior editor Devendra Hardwar. Today, I'm joined with our buyer's guide editor, Chris Naudis. Hey, Chris.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. And we have a guest from PC Mag, Jordan Miner, to chat about Valve's Steam Deck. Hey, Jordan.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm very excited to talk about video games with other people.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad to have you on. I've been meaning to get you on forever. So this is great. Hello to our live chat audience. I see Jonathan Anderson, Wilso, Gabriel, people we've already had to block because of their usernames. So it goes. Farhan, thank you all for joining us this morning. We'll be going to the Steam Deck, some of the recent news, but Jordan, you're a gaming guy and you know a bit about hardware too. So I'm sure you have thoughts about the Steam Deck.
All sorts of thoughts.
All sorts of thoughts,
yep.
Which kind of came out of nowhere. As usual, folks, this is just the live chat portion. When we start recording the show, we can't really chat with you as the audience. Our producer, Ben, also isn't on today, so he won't be looking at questions from the live chat. We'll stop and do a Q&A after some of our sections, so you can throw down your questions there. But enjoy the show, folks. And is everybody else good to go?
Yeah. I'm all good.
Okay. And my recording's going. Everyone's recording's going. Okay.
Yep.
Let's go in 3, 2, 1. What's up, everybody? And welcome back to the Engadget podcast. I'm senior editor Devendra Hardwar. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay. Thank you. Yes. I'm buyer's guide editor. Buyer's guide editor Chris Naudis.
Hi. Do that again so we get I'm buyer's guide. Yep.
Yeah. Chris Naudis. And what is wrong with me this morning? Clearly.
It's okay.
It's first time jitters, clearly.
It's first time. But say I'm so we can cut into that.
I'm buyer's guide editor Chris Naudis. Hello.
Hello. Good morning. And Sherlyn is out this week. She is taking a much deserved vacation, but that's all well and good because we're going to be talking about gaming hardware. And I think Chris, you know portable gaming systems. You have thoughts on games, so I feel like you'll be a good person to chat with about this. As always, folks, if you're enjoying the Engadget podcast, please be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcatcher of choice. Leave us a review on iTunes. That's always super helpful. And drop us an email at podcast@engadget.com if you have any questions or concerns or feedback. We typically record a live stream on Thursdays at around 10 a.m. Eastern on our YouTube channel. So you can join us for that. Join the live chat. We will do some Q&A sections there as well. It's always a fun time.
Yeah, and I would say that Sherilyn could have talked about the Steam Deck, which a few things we will get into, but if it's another way for her to play Overcooked.
Yeah, that's really all it's going to be. Okay, I'm going to go into this section now. So what the hell is Valve's Steam Deck? That was a kind of a big question last week after Valve just kind of dropped the announcement out of nowhere. Joining us to chat about it is Jordan Miner from PC Mag. Jordan, what's up?
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Hello. So, that question still stands. What the hell is the Valve Steam Deck, Jordan?
It is a portable computer that Valve is putting out. It's a piece of Valve hardware, which is not the most frequent thing. So it's kind of exciting when it does happen. The easiest comparison is that it's a Nintendo Switch, but for PC games. It's a tablet with controllers attached to it, and you can play your Steam games on the go and dock it if you want.
It seems pretty simple. Yeah, this was rumored for a while. I think we had talked about the idea of a Valve Steam Pal, which I think was what the rumors were calling it. Valve just kind of dropped this out of nowhere. There was no event. There was no really fair warning or anything. It was IGN that had some early looks at it and some hands-ons, but nobody else has touched this thing. What are your first impressions, Jordan, after seeing this?
First impressions that it looks very big. It's
a big boy.
It's a big boy. People, speaking of code names, people were calling it Gabe Gear, versus the Game Gear, which is another very unwieldy old handheld. But yeah, it's like a 16:10 screen. It's like 1.5 pounds, I think. I don't have all this.
It's 1.5 pounds. Yeah.
It's got these 2 touchpads on it, and then the sticks and the buttons are aligned in this kind of weird horizontal alignment.
And they're way up on the top right and the top corners as well, which seems unusual for any game system.
Yeah. It's got 4 triggers on the back. it's just, and when you consider that the specs are putting in there, it just seems like it's very substantial and very potentially cumbersome device.
That was kind of the first thought I had too. Chris, your first thoughts on this thing?
Well, I mean, immediately you think of, well, they want to compete with the Switch, but the thing is, the amount of buttons, the touchpad, all of the crap they put on this thing, it reminds me more of the Wii U gamepad, which was like the kitchen sink of console peripherals, and they didn't need half of that. So it does feel like it might be a little over-engineered, especially considering that they're selling it as, hey, you have your entire Steam library, but a lot of these games aren't made to be played with joysticks or touchpads.
For sure. And it's a weird thing. I was definitely getting Wii U gamepad vibes here too, but here's the thing. I don't hate the Wii U. I thought the Wii U was that was I could see why it was not for many people, but the Wii U was very much for me, and I like that big ass Fisher Price gamepad.
They need to make the Wii U to get to the Switch.
Yes,
and the idea of the Wii U as like a handheld device that wasn't meant to be taken out of the home was kind of fascinating to me. But speaking of it being kind of over-engineered, I think the touch panels, I think, will remind me most of on the Steam controller had similar kind of big like touchpad things to kind of simulate mouse controls. And I didn't hate that on the Steam controller. I thought that was like the most interesting thing about it. But
that one didn't have analog sticks, right?
It had one analog stick.
Okay.
It had one analog stick and two kind of big circle touchpad things. And we all know how Steam machines turned out, but...
Well, let's we will talk about Steam machines, because I feel like that is forgotten history here as we talk about Valve's history with hardware. And honestly, Valve is a company I have a hard time trusting sometimes too. Yeah. But we will dive into all that. First, let's break down what is inside the Valve Steam Deck, what makes it different from the Switch. This thing has a 7-inch 16:10 screen, like you were saying. So that means it's a little taller than the Switch and most normal 16:9 widescreen displays. It's interesting. It's running an AMD system on a chip with a 4-core, 8-thread processor, 8 RDNA 2 compute units. I saw Digital Foundry comparing this thing basically to the Xbox Series S. Like not a super powerful system, but something that's decent enough to get like good 720p performance, which is what the screen is for. It's got 16 gigabytes of LPDDR5 RAM, which is honestly, that's surprising, because I still review PCs these days, full-size laptops that come with 8 gigabytes of RAM, and PC makers pretend like that's normal. You've got a choice between 64 gigabytes of eMMC storage, 256 gigabytes NVMe SSD, or a 512 gigabyte NVMe SSD. And that really, those are the price points, right? Do you have the prices offhand, Jordan? I know it starts at $399. Yeah, there
it is on the screen. Yeah,
$399 for 64 gigabytes, $529 for 256, $649 for the 512. What do you think about the pricing and the specs?
I think it's really aggressive. It's a lot cheaper than I would have expected them to come at. The low end model is only $50 more than the Switch OLED that just got announced. And obviously that you're losing your storage for PC games on that low end is not enough. So you have to invest in like micro SD card. But I mean, when Gabe Newell says that they're taking a hit on these, I believe him, because I believe him. Yeah. Given what we've seen with this hardware, the cool thing about this is it's not just handheld, right? Like, it is literally a portable PC, so you could plug into a monitor, you could plug it into a TV, you could plug in a keyboard and mouse. They're selling a dock for it, but I hear it's also going to work with just about any USB-C dock as well. So this thing is basically, just a powerful little piece of hardware you could take around, do whatever you want with it. You could install Windows in it because it's a PC. One interesting thing is that this thing is running Linux. It's running, the Steam Deck platform on a Linux variant, but it's still going to be able to play Windows games. And to me, that seems like the biggest hurdle for Valve to fix. What's going on there, Jordan? So I mean, to bring back the specter of Steam machines, the biggest hurdle for those was that they were running Linux, so that hurt their compatibility with a lot of games. But with this, Valve is using a compatibility layer. I think it's called Proton, that they're rolling out to try to get as many Steam games, like regardless of operating system, compatible with it as they can. And I know it's not perfect yet. I know some stuff with like anti-cheat software is running into some issues, but they are proactively trying to fix this any potential compatibility issues.
What happened with Steam Deck or Steam machines? I remember, we had a lot of news around that around 2015. Valve was talking about them. It was like, we're going to turn PC gaming, machines into console-like experiences. Then they just kind of died. Do you recall what happened?
The first time the first and only time I've been to Valve's office was to get briefed on Steam machines like 6 years ago. And again, it was all running Linux, so they couldn't run like a good chunk of the games on Steam. They were all kind of outsourced to like outside manufacturers. So you would have companies like Alienware putting out a Steam machine and then just a Windows PC that was basically the same spec. So it's like, why? Like that was still kind of meant for the home. So it's like, why? And then they had Steam Big Picture mode, which is more than enough for putting your PC games on TV in a way that makes sense. So it just never made it. Just didn't make sense. There was no problem that it was solving.
Oh man, I wonder. And to me, this thing just seems also another thing for hardcore PC gamers. Chris, do you have any feelings about the Steam Deck? Like, is it something you'd actually want, or is this market just outside of what you want?
Well, first off, I will agree with Jordan that it is very much like thinking back to the Steam machines that they didn't work because for starters, you had all of these outside companies making them. It reminds me a lot of the 3DO back in the 90s, which I think only 2 models came out here in the States. And they were like a year late because they were announced, or at least I remember there was a big press conference at CES 2014. I was actually there, one of the few times I've actually been at anything. And they didn't actually release the systems until like a year later. So the reference specs that Valve had given out were just already way outdated. The fact that they're building it themselves means that like, even if it's delayed, they can make some changes on the fly. Like we're not relying on other companies for a constant back and forth in terms of communication, which I suppose is good. As a consumer, I don't know. It's kind of tempting because, like a lot of people, I have a huge Steam library filled with things that I bought for like $1 or $2 during a Steam sale. And I don't get to play these games as much as I get to play stuff on handheld because I can't take it with me on the subway or to the park or even just noodle with it while I watch TV. So that's kind of appealing, at least in that aspect. It's just like, with the small amount of storage or the weird ergonomics of it are not appealing at all. Like, I have small girly hands and I can't imagine trying to get my thumb up on those thumbsticks.
It's just so big. I remember when I first reviewed the Nintendo Switch, I was like, this feels a little too chunky almost. Like there's so much bezel around the screen. Like clearly they can make it smaller, and they kind of did with the Switch Lite, or make the screen bigger, which they did with the OLED Switch. But this one is just like a whole nother level. I've seen some side-by-side comparisons. It's about the same height, but extra tall. It's like the big Switch with wings, with extra wings around it. Just kind of wild. And it does seem like something that's mainly meant for the hardcore Steam gamers, not really for casual players. But this also is not the only portable PC like this around, right? Like I've seen others kind of floating around. I forget the names exactly, but this isn't the first to do it. I do wonder with Valve's, backing and maybe with the support of some developers, if this one could actually succeed. Jordan, have you seen any of those other portable PCs?
Not me personally, but some of my colleagues have for sure, like CES and stuff. I don't remember the names exactly, but I think Alienware was showing one off not too long ago.
Well, we saw that was a concept 2020 CES last year, pre-pandemic. But they showed off this huge concept device. It was called the Alienware UFO concept, I believe. And it was enormous. It had like an 8-inch screen, but it was even bigger than this. The controller was it felt like a giant Xbox, like the Duke controller, but with a screen in the middle. It was big and unwieldy. I do feel like a lot of companies are going to go after this just because the hardware is ready. We've seen like what these mobile chips can do right now. And hardware wise, at the very least, like as soon as I saw this, I was wondering, like, is this a Switch killer of some kind? Hardware-wise, it is. I think the bigger question is, will it get the actual user support? Will developers maybe build some custom profiles so their games can run best at this 720p portable resolution. Will people actually want this thing for, to plug into a TV for tabletop gaming or to use as a PC? Those are all questions that remain to be seen. Jordan, Chris, do you guys have any thoughts? Like, would you use this thing beyond portable gaming?
I already pre-ordered one. I love.
Same.
I mean, 4 years of the Switch. I just realized I love playing games portably, even like big AAA games. And yeah, the most exciting thing about this to me is, and especially with the fact that it's only 720p, that hopefully they can get, the specs will be able to keep up with some bigger modern games. But yeah, just the idea of playing games that I couldn't play on the Switch on this thing is really appealing to me. But it's really, the more I think about it, it's really more so those games, because they also showed off like Hades on this thing, and it's like Hades runs perfectly fine on the Switch. I don't need this for something like that. I need this for games that can't run on the Switch. Like
they showed Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order running pretty smoothly, so I don't know if they faked that footage. I think it would have been harder to fake that. It seems like it was running fine, but again, it's 720p. I don't know how much this little, the little mobile Radeon processor will work. Maybe good for handheld, maybe not so great for like playing on your TV, right? Like it's not going to be a super powerful gaming PC that you could take anywhere. It's just going to be good enough for plugging into monitors. Chris, any thoughts about what you would do with this if you got it?
Yeah, I was just thinking, I don't remember the name of it. Remember Razer had that handheld thing with the two, with the joystick and the buttons on the side. And I remember during all the press briefings, the first question anybody asks is, are the controllers detachable? Yeah. And they were just like, no. And that's one of my first hesitance with this, looking at this thing, is just, like I said, it's big, it's clunky. I don't see myself playing it at home, in terms of docking it to anything, because I have regular computers for that. They're more comfortable, more ergonomic. This, again, it looks like it's just going to be very uncomfortable. But as of visual novels, that seems perfect for that. I don't even need an overpowered machine. I think that the cost of it is, even though it's more than the Switch, it is offset by the fact that, again, you can buy all these games in Steam sales and they're $2, $3, $4, and you can build a bigger library much faster. I love my Switch, but I hate that the minimum for some games is $15, $20. So I have to be very picky with what I buy. While with Steam, it's that's I've been interested in the game. It's $5. Okay, it doesn't matter if I don't play it for 4 years.
There's a clear Nintendo tax on Switch games, right? Especially when they come to PC and Switch at the same time. The Switch games are usually $10 higher. That's not unusual to see. I'll admit, I also pre-ordered the 256 gigabyte model here, the mid-range one. The pre-order was just easy, I think that was the thing. I could easily cancel that for any reason. It just seemed like if I wanted to get my hands on this, I better do something now. The other thing is that I think for a lot of people, you could just get a backbone controller for your iPhone, or a Razer Kishi, that mobile controller, and do Steam Remote Play, assuming you're at home. But you could do Steam Remote Play pretty well. I've done that quite a bit. I've done Xbox Game Pass streaming, via my phone with those controllers as well. Those things work well. They're only $100 typically. And I feel like that would suit a lot more people more. I don't know, Jordan, Chris, have you guys thought about those things?
I've used streaming. Going back to the Switch, I played the streaming version of Control on the Switch. I don't think I'll ever just fully trust completely streaming games. I just feel more comfortable when the thing is just running natively on the hardware.
But if it's streaming from your house and then it's just over your Wi-Fi network or something, it will be better than Control going to
from the cloud. Yeah, for sure. So at that point, it might just be my own. It may not be rational, but I just feel better when it's running off of the device, especially with a portable device, because then I want to be able to take it where I can't, where I won't have internet, necessarily. So.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think we've greatly overestimated the capabilities of streaming. I think the past year has taught us, we've all had enough Zoom meetings where somebody kind of blinkers out or they freeze up, that not everyone has a good connection. I don't trust streaming. I would rather have it local, especially as Jordan points out, if you want to go on the go. And we haven't mentioned this thing doesn't have like LTE or anything, right? Like,
no.
Yeah, so I mean,
it's not
again,
a Vita.
Yeah. The most perfect game machine ever created, according to
the perfect Vita portable. Yeah. Oh man, I mean, and to be clear, there is a difference between like streaming from your home network via Steam Remote Play versus streaming from the cloud like Xbox Game Pass. And I do like Chris, if you have a large Steam library and you have all these games you haven't played, especially visual novels, get one of those controllers and you could just sit on your couch and blast through those things easily on your phone. And your phone screen is probably going to be better than it's certainly better than the Switch's crappy LCD, So it's like we have options now. I do wonder if people are going to start exploring those more. You wouldn't need
it's okay to have some lag with a visual novel. Like
it's fine. It's totally fine. Like even if your computer was on Wi-Fi and the actual system was on Wi-Fi too, it'd be totally fine. I guess back to my main question about this whole thing. Does this feel like a Switch killer to you guys? Just because the online conversation really does seem buzzy around the Steam Deck versus the Switch OLED, which I think a lot of people found to be disappointing hardware-wise.
Well, the Steam Deck will never have Nintendo games. Nintendo makes incredible games that people really like a lot. So no. And also Nintendo just operates at a scale that is larger. Like we see with the pre-order for this thing, if you didn't pre-order within the first like 2 hours, you went from getting it like this December to like next August or like Q3 next year. So if they can't make enough, then it won't. They've sold like 85 million Switches. So it's just the audience that this is targeted towards, I think is it overlaps for sure, but it's not exactly the same audience. So I think, things can coexist.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the one thing we don't know. Is it how durable it is? Is it how does it feel in your hand? Like, because nobody's gotten a hands-on with this thing yet. Because I know for parents, a lot of the appeal of Nintendo is these things are tough as nails. Like you drop it on the ground, throw it across the room. And, we all love to reference the Game Boy that was blown up during the Gulf War. And so if you're a parent and you had a choice between the Switch and the Steam Deck, you could be like, yeah, my kid has a Steam library, but they're also really rough on their things. And I don't know, like until the first reviews come out, a lot of parents are really going to be waiting because they don't want to drop hundreds of dollars on something that their kid drops and shatters. So
yeah, it's also one of those things. I do think like the vast majority of parents don't know as much about this stuff as their kids do, so they may not even be aware of like the Steam library. But certainly I've never heard of this company called Valve. Why is this thing costing more than the Nintendo device? I know Nintendo, at least like the Switch seems made for kids, so like there's a lot of that going into it too, I think
that's a little unfair to a lot of parents, because I look at my brother and his stepdaughter, and I remember once she was like,
he's a gamer.
Yeah, he's a gamer. It's kind of hilarious though, because she'll be like, I'm interested in this game. And then I saw it was on sale a week later, and I'm like, hey, did you buy this for her? And he goes, yeah, she actually reminded me because she gets the emails now. And I'm like, kids are on this stuff. Like they know what's coming. They know what stuff is on sale. I feel like I saw it on like Tumblr in the way back when that somebody's kid was at summer camp and they sent a postcard and they filled it in and it said, so and so are on sale, on your wish list are on sale, please buy. And I'm like, that's dedication for that child to like know that they, like, mom, please buy me these games while I'm at summer camp. So
as I was trying to pre-order it, I was getting texts from my cousins about, hey, is this worth getting? Should I get this now? Blah, blah. I was like, I'm trying to get it. So, yeah.
Sure. I do feel like the market, the people who were eager to get the Switch OLED maybe, and I know the pre-orders went up for that and kind of disappeared like super quickly because that stuff. I do wonder if like that person who wants to Switch OLED or next year's Switch Pro maybe would rather just put their money into this, especially if they already have a Switch, So it does seem like a bifurcation of the high end a little bit. I don't know if you guys feel that way. Valve can always just be playing its own thing. Like some people just have both systems, right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't order a Switch OLED. I mean, I was already probably not going to, but now I'm super. And I'm a huge Nintendo guy. I love Nintendo. Yeah. Again, like the Switch has made me it's convinced me about like playing portably, all kinds of games. But with it being the same hardware, it being the same specs, I was just not as interested. So.
Yeah, if it's a game that I need it to look better, it's probably a game that I was playing on the big screen in the first place. Like Breath of the Wild is very different as a handheld experience versus on the big ass TV. And people have pointed out, it's the same specs. You're not getting any better visual, fidelity or resolution, whatever, on a TV. It's just better if you play it mostly in handheld mode. I don't even know why they bothered making it a traditional Switch instead of just making it an OLED Switch Lite or something similar to that, if there's really no point in upgrading.
Well, you want the bigger controller, or you want the bigger screen, basically. I'm looking at our chat room here, and people are pointing out, like, maybe the Steam Deck is more meant to be a replacement for laptop gamers. And that I've seen that argument, too. I've reviewed a lot of gaming laptops recently, though, so certainly in this price range, you can't really get a good gaming laptop. To get like the Dell G3 or G5, you have to go at least $800 or more. But for an overall gaming experience, you get better hardware. You get a lot better hardware with even a cheap gaming laptop. And you can still plug that thing into your TV or something and use it as a semi-console. So maybe that is a bit of the market too. It seems like a weird space Valve is playing in right now. I'm really interested in seeing, like, if they stick with this. That's the first thing, because Valve is not good at sticking with hardware. They're really good at killing hardware in franchises and things like that. But I reviewed the Valve Index a couple of years ago with Half-Life Alyx, and that thing was kind of like a revelation. Like, oh man, Valve can actually make great hardware that feels good. Those controllers are amazing. Half-Life Alyx is a pretty, like, one of the best VR games I've ever played. So, like, this company has still got it when they dedicate themselves to it, and not just like being the Steam King and being the like MOBA cash cow company. Like, if they actually try, they can accomplish a lot. So I'm excited. I don't know, how about you guys? Closing thoughts on the Steam Deck?
I think to that point, though, what excites me about this is, since it's a PC, even if Valve does abandon it, you'll still have a lot of potential utility.
Sure.
Just using it as a computer. Like, you'll get all your Steam games, basically like for free running on it. As opposed to something like the Vita, where when its parent company abandons it, it's over, it's dead.
Aww. The hacking scene says otherwise, but it is kind of dead. I need to resurrect my Vita because I miss holding that in my hands, and also I think that's the only platform I own right now that can play Xenogears, and I want to play Xenogears again. Re-release that game, folks. Chris, any closing thoughts?
Well, I love Xenogears, and I would love to actually see the second disc made into a real game instead of a bunch of people sitting in a chair talking about all the cool shit you didn't get to do.
How dare you? But yes, also that.
Yeah. Jordan has a great point that, you don't have to worry about it not being supported because Steam isn't going anywhere. Valve can pretty much coast on having Steam for...
They're really good at that. Yeah.
I do think it's exciting, and I'm sure one of the reasons they even created hardware is that hardware can often spur game development. Like, you try out new things with your games instead of depending on standard and currently available input methods. Like, that's what makes Nintendo games so good, is because they're building them with the hardware in mind, or and it's a back and forth between the two. And that's been missing for a while now, that we have fewer companies who are doing both gaming and hardware. Like, pour one out for Sega,
I just bought, apparently the Sega online store sells Dreamcast merch. So I just bought 2 Dreamcast shirts. I'm like, yeah, sure. I need to wear these. I got to represent Dreamcast, the best console ever made.
I just watched that Console Wars documentary. It's like, oh yeah,
yes.
I remember Sega. Yeah. I don't know how well this will play, but I got I'm trying to get used to cumbersome, dumb controls on handhelds. So I got these 4E pads for my Switch.
There you go. Those look really good.
Actually, really like actually. Yeah.
I may consider that. I've gotten some Switch pads just to get like a better D-pad, so that's the thing. But anyway, folks, we will be keeping an eye on the Valve Steam Deck. And Jordan, just so you know, I'm going to wrap you up. Let's. Do you want to stick around for like 10 minutes to answer questions from the chat?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Let me wrap you out, and then we'll stick around for Q&A. Okay, folks, we will be keeping an eye on the Valve Steam Deck, certainly as it gets close to release. Jordan Miner, thank you so much for joining us to chat about this. Where can people find your work on the internet?
They can find me on PCMag.com, where I write all sorts of stuff about video games and apps and meal kits. They can watch our show, The Pop-Off, on YouTube, also where I talk about video games with some of our other colleagues.
Nice.
And I'm on Twitter at Jordan W. Miner. It's Jordan W. and Miner, like children.
Aren't you the real Street Sharks guy?
I
feel
am.
like that's the thing. Yeah.
Yes, if people know what that is, they can find out what that means. But yes, I'm also that guy.
That's a tidbit. Thank you so much, Jordan.
Thank you so much.
Okay, cut here for this segment. And we can move over to our chat room. Hello, chat room. Thank you all for dropping questions. I've been keeping an eye on it. Jonathan Anderson shouts out Dreamcast Portable. I mean,
the VMU.
The VMU was so good. I do feel like I remember when the Xbox 360 was like coming into fruition, and somebody was it a GameSpot article. Everybody was like, "Isn't it? It's the same people behind the Dreamcast, the American marketing, were behind the Xbox 360. They both had circular logos. They were both white consoles, and everybody was doing like big galaxy brain. Oh, this is the Dreamcast 2.0." That's basically what it was, because I don't know if people remember this, but Microsoft teamed up with Sega to do the Dreamcast, and the Dreamcast ran Windows CE, which was also its downfall because everybody hacked it and copied all the games and helped to kill that system.
Yeah, there was a lot of crossover there. Yeah. I mean, then like Shenmue wasn't like Shenmue 2 on the original Xbox, and like Jet Set. And,
yes, Jet Set and everything. I mean, I look at the Dreamcast as sort of like the Xbox 0.5. You know, is like Microsoft being like, hey, what if we did something here within this? I love my Dreamcast. That was the first console I ever bought for myself. I think it was that and the Game Boy Advance. So yeah, big Dreamcast love over here. People are asking, Ferdy and Harris is asking, can Steam Deck run AAA games? We didn't really talk too much about the performance, but Jordan, like, what are your thoughts with that processor and that GPU?
I mean, I'm not there are people who know a lot more about that than I do. But the fact that they were showing like Jedi Fallen Order, a pretty big Unreal Engine 4 game that had like some technical issues on like these last gen consoles. So I think that's a pretty confident one to come out there with.
Mm-hmm. They showed like 5 seconds of control, which is the game I throw on any PC. Like when I'm benchmarking GPUs these days, like I throw control at it and see what happens. And they showed very little bit of control, but it honestly looked like it was under 30 FPS. It looked a little slow, a little chunky. I think IGN's hands-ons also showed that it was a little slow. So I would not expect miracles, but certainly if Jedi Fallen Order can run 720p pretty well, a lot of modern games will too. You just won't be able to go all out with like ray tracing and everything. Yeah.
I know that with a lot of the Switch Pro rumors, a lot the big rumor was that it would use NVIDIA's DLSS. I forget what it's called, but doesn't AMD also have some sort of equivalent that they're like working on, or if already rolled out maybe?
I forget the name of it now because we had just written it up, but AMD is running its own like algorithmic upscaling technology, which will also run on an NVIDIA card. So like things are really interesting, but it's not the same as DLSS. DLSS like relies on like AI processing from some of the NVIDIA GPU cores, like the Tempo AI, the tensor cores on the NVIDIA GPU. So it works a little differently. In terms of raw mobile power, though, like everybody goes AMD. That kind of makes sense because that's why the new consoles are running Radeon and AMD hardware as well. Okay, I'm just looking down the stream. Thank you, everybody, for throwing questions. Everybody's talking about Vita. Mr. Enterprise says, I love my Vita, but barely played it. I feel like that was the problem with the Vita. PS Vita revival, let's go, says Jonathan Anderson. I feel like this crowd just gets it.
Yeah,
this is the best.
The Vita standing is the most baffling thing to me.
I spent 200 hours. I played 200 hours of Persona 4 Golden on the Vita, so I have like a deep and abiding love for just that experience on that system. Also, the Vita launched with OLED. Okay, they didn't have to wait for 2021 like
10 years. The PSP I think is a great system.
PSP was great.
So it's not about Sony handhelds. It's just about that one.
Really, if Sony just took the frame of the Vita, kept that original OLED screen, and just put in like, it was a small screen, it's like 5.6 inches, I think. So if they like expanded the screen, but just put in modern hardware, like I do feel like they could do a lot with that. But Sony's a mess right now.
Or just put out games, like even the hardware. I think they just need to put games for it.
They killed the Vita store, right? So it's all down. It's all dead for now.
But we know that, I mean, part of the reason, like, the Vita and the PSP before, why they ultimately lost the war is because, Nintendo has the games. Nintendo offers, like, the experience, especially, as I mentioned, with the Steam Deck and everything. Like, is it going to be durable. And I look at the Vita and I look at the PSP before. They're beautiful machines, but I would not let a 5-year-old near them. And that's like, it's just terrifying.
And they, I mean, the UMD was spinning discs too, right?
Yeah,
so
and it felt uncomfortable.
Not good.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that. The evolution of mini disc in a portable gaming console, not very smart. Just looking at questions here. I think we're rounding out. Earn NES asks, do you think this is a bigger play to push Steam more than hardware? A big win for Valve would be if Razer, Dell, Alienware, HP Omen versions of this all benefits Valve's bottom line. What do you think, Jordan? Is this more about Steam than the hardware? Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I would say about more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if there's something out of a loss, potentially.
Valve wins either way, right?
Yeah. If it's just an easier way to like kind of onboard people into PC gaming, which I think it could be, since it's like it's bespoke. You don't have to. Hopefully, developers will have like preset, settings for this thing. Hopefully, you won't have to like swap out pieces. So if it's like an easy way to get people into PC gaming into their ecosystem, then yeah, I think that could be definitely what they're trying to do here.
I do feel like PC makers may feel burned after the Steam Deck, or the Steam machines. You had mentioned Alienware's Steam machine, and I'm sure Dell and Alienware was like, I don't prove to me that you will support this and you will make this a viable platform before I invest R&D into it. Thank you very much.
Yeah. But I think as compared to their other, I mean, I'm not a big VR guy, but like I think as far as Valve hardware goes, it's the only one that's like immediately made sense and been appealing to me ever. So.
Yeah, I think it's to convince people who don't think of PC gaming at all. Like at this point, consoles, those are for games. And everyone plays games on their phones, but not everyone plays PC games. So by creating this object that is obviously, like, I'm going to say a toy, like, I think it is just might be an undercover way to get more people into PC gaming, to make Steam accounts and all that.
They just got to get it in like a Walmart. Like they need to have it in places then that just aren't on Steam. I think that's like the real end game. Like they need to put it like where mass consumers can buy it. Also,
we're talking about portable PCs here. I do wonder, like, what is Microsoft thinking? Like there have been rumors about Microsoft being like, maybe we should do some sort of Xbox handheld thing, but they've been burned so many times with different types of hardware that they didn't want to fully support. I do think Game Pass streaming on phones like works incredibly well on tablets too. Like that seems like their approach. But Microsoft is a PC focused company. I would not be surprised if they had something like this down the line that could stream games really well, but also had a decent amount of power. If anybody else was going to get into this, it would probably be them, because they haven't tried. Yeah.
They have games on Steam though. I was looking at Steam.
They have games on Steam.
Buy Microsoft's Halo, the Master Chief Collection that you could presumably play on your Steam Deck.
I could see Microsoft releasing something that was like almost like as powerful as this, but also would be good for Game Pass streaming and would be good for Steam remote play as well. Or just like, hey, install Steam because we built a little PC. Either way, Valve wins. Like that's the thing. Like it doesn't matter where this ecosystem goes, Valve will always win. So this company is going to be fine. They're going to continue printing money. But yeah, I'm looking forward to playing with this thing. And hopefully we'll all get some hands-on time soon. I think we can wrap it for now. Jordan, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun. Love this.
Can you save your audio, throw it to like one of the file sending apps and just shoot that in an email to us?
Sure. So I'll stop recording now.
Cool.
Yeah. Let me just export this.
Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on to the rest of the show, but thank you very much, Jordan.
Okay.
Thanks for spending your morning with us, all right?
Yeah, anytime. Yeah.
Have a good one.
You too. Peace.
Bye. All right, we are going to move on to other news. Chris, are you good to go?
I am fine, assuming we're talking about what I think we're talking about.
Sure. Yeah. I think we will, and I'm just going to read because I think Jess did an incredible job with this follow-up post on it. Okay. Let's move on to some other news, and I think one of the biggest pieces of news this week is a divorced dad flew to space, right? Jeffrey Preston Bezos, a 57-year-old dad from New Mexico, flew to the edge of space and back again today. That was written on July 20th this week. And Jess Condit basically took Jeff Bezos' space trip. He went up in his big, curiously shaped rocket that could not look any more like a giant rocket dick. I do feel like, yep, there are many ways to make rockets, right? We've seen many rockets, but this one like almost seemed like it went the extra level to do that. But yeah, he successfully flew in a tourist flight to the edge of space and came back down with several other folks. What are you thinking about this, Chris? Because we talked about the Billionaire space race last week, and I'm not super impressed with these folks doing this right now. But what are your thoughts?
Oh, what are my thoughts?
Yeah,
well, I mean, that's the funny part is like I knew it was coming and then it happened. And then I just kind of didn't care. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, we're spending all this money on this instead of world hunger. Like I've reached the point where I'm not surprised that we're spending money on this instead of world hunger. It has also been pointed out to me that even back in the 60s, when we were sending men to the moon, there were people protesting saying, hey, we have starving children.
Most of America did not support the moon landing. So
yeah, which is kind of funny because now it's like all we ever talk about. We won the space race, and I think you were at the same Neil deGrasse Tyson show I was at years ago, and he talked about like I don't want to say necrophilia, which is just the weirdest word to use for it. But he was talking about how we just keep celebrating and talking about the same thing, and we just stop moving forward. Like our space program is essentially just like a walking corpse. And so to that effect, yeah, maybe it's exciting. We're sending tourists to space, but the fact that it's like Jeff Bezos and it's possibly the worst time you could do this. We are living in an issue of The Onion. And I say issue, like I'm being old school talking about when it was still on print.
Yes.
And, a lot of horrible things have happened in the past few years. And this isn't horrible, but it is something that could be an Onion article. But we've just gone past reality. The whole truth is stranger than fiction. The
last 5 years have basically been the Onion reality, and it is kind of shocking how dumb things have gotten. There are some good takeaways from this. After his flight, Jeff Bezos gave us a few comments. He said, "We need to take all heavy industry, all polluting industry, and move it into space. Keep Earth as this beautiful gem of a planet that it is." That I guess you needed to go to space to realize you should take care of this planet, and maybe this whole rocket company isn't helping, right?
I think I'm more worried about the day to Earth stood still coming to life, that like some guy comes down and be like, hey, you need to stop shooting things into space because you're effing up space. Like, because I that is not a solution. Like, let's just all shove heavy industry into space. That comes back down, especially when you think of the problem of space garbage, which was beautifully illustrated in Gravity. No matter the movie, no matter what you think of the plot or the acting or whatever, the fact is that space trash is a huge problem, and the idea that we should just send all our industry up there, like. I assume companies will treat it just like they treated the Earth before we had, the EPA, the Clean Air Act.
Oh, absolutely. That's what we're already doing, right? It's just junk up there. Another quote: "We need unifiers, not vilifiers. When you look out at the planet, there are no borders. There's nothing. It's one planet, and we share it, and it's fragile." This coming from the guy who's running, a company that is known for its inhumane and exploitative working conditions. Their fights against unionizing the things that would actually help their workers. It's kind of hilarious.
Yeah, that goes into the other quote. I assume you have it in front of you, where he thanks all of the Amazon customers and employees.
Let me. So I'm going to quote Jess's article here. Who I could feel the blood running through, in her mouth with this, because it's like Bezos, who amassed more than $70 billion in personal wealth last year and regularly pays $0 in federal income taxes, then thanked these same Amazon employees for paying for his trip to space. He said, "I also want to thank every Amazon employee and every Amazon customer because you guys paid for all this." It's true. We did pay for it.
It does make me glad I've kind of cut down on my Amazon spending in the past year, but not that it helped, because individual action doesn't really make a big difference in the overall, trend of things. So, one good thing I would say that came out of this is I like that, what's her name? Wally Funk. Got to go up. She's the oldest astronaut thus far. Yeah, that's great. She was denied the chance to go to space way back when. So that's actually a kind of cool thing that she at least got her, 11 minutes, up there. I mean, it'd be great if they could just keep sending her up there just as like a big FU to John Glenn and, everyone else who held her back.
Absolutely. That is, I mean, hey, one good thing. Congrats, Jeff Bezos, on like building the rocket company, riding the rocket. It seems like this is going to be the main focus of his life after this, because he is not CEO of Amazon anymore, right? So he has a lot more time to focus on this. We'll be keeping an eye on all this, folks. But yeah, the world is on fire. Major cities are being flooded. It's this seems like not the best time to play Rocket Wars. Let's move on to some other news. There was a weird thing over the last week where offhandedly President Biden said that Facebook is killing people with vaccine misinformation. And Facebook quickly came back and was like, they rejected that claim. They said they're working really hard to like push vaccine information out there. They did not actually admit that a lot of anti-vaccine conversations happening on their platform. They're not doing much about it. This was a weird back and forth, but I do think, and then Biden ended up backtracking, and he was like, okay, Facebook isn't killing people. It's the bad people on Facebook. It's the vaccine misinformers, the people who are out there spreading misinformation. They're the real culprits. Do you have any thoughts about this back and forth, Chris? Because I don't think it's been particularly great or helpful.
Yeah, I mean, Facebook could come out and be like, we have developed this system that just magically deletes without, intervention of the algorithms accurately every single time, every piece of vaccine misinformation, which is not true. Like when they put out that statement, the top post about vaccines on Facebook was from Marjorie Taylor Greene. So like clearly, yeah, their systems, whatever they have in place, aren't that effective. Like somebody still sees these posts before they get taken down by the system or by human intervention. But the bigger issue is that Facebook is reaping the result, like years of not moderating itself very well. Like it doesn't matter that now they're finally jumping on like the misinformation train, is that they've using the word training, and they've trained an entire generation of older folks to not believe the mainstream media, to only listen to stupid image macros. And like this is something that should have been nipped in the butt years ago. Like it's just people take all of their information off of Facebook. Like you can try to steer the sources in the right direction, but the damage has already been done, and we're just living with it. People who have been on Facebook for the past 10 years now turn to news that was on a few years ago, and like there are more right-wing news. I mean, I have CNN, NBC, but what was it called? One network. Oh, number is on there. But so yeah. The damage has been, and I doesn't seem to have a plan of fix, all of the problems created.
Okay. Let's take a pause here. Can you hear us, Chris?
Okay, yeah, I can hear you just fine.
You can hear it? Yeah, it was just like a wireless hiccup. Were you breaking up? Julio, was Chris breaking up for that whole section? Well, listen, we got it. We'll get it on the source audio too, so I think we're good. Let's see. Can you hear us, Chris?
Yeah, I'm not lost. Can I clicking?
Okay. Can you? I'm gonna ping her.
Don't hear.
I'm gonna just tell Chris to drop her Wi-Fi and reconnect.
Find out.
Okay. Thank you, folks. This is the production issues we're dealing with. We're also, our audio producer is not on, so it's just me talking right now. Chris, are we back? I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yeah, no, I never lost connection with you guys. I can hear you just fine. I never lost connection.
So
you guys were coming through clear, thing. As was all your mouse notes. Click, 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 click.
It's an upload thing. Okay. So we got that bit. Let me just wrap up that section. And sorry, folks, in the chat, if you did not catch all that, we're just going to keep on moving. But I heard like what you were going through, Chris. So Ben can put that together. One thing I wanted to add here. Okay. I think one good take on all of this I saw is from Charlie Warzel, who we talk about quite a bit on his newsletter, Galaxy Brain. He's saying the Biden-Facebook fight is part of the problem because it's kind of the wrong question, right? Is Facebook killing people? Because then Facebook will just get defensive and come back saying, no, look at all the ways we're not killing people. But it's not super constructive. It doesn't actually lead to anything. But I think what you were saying was true, Chris. Like this is a problem that has been kind of building up for a while. This is a company that has pursued engagement at all costs. And unfortunately, when you engage in a communication with humans, you're going to get a lot of bad stuff. You're going to get a lot of humans being garbagey to each other. And they just don't have the mechanisms in place to really deal with that. We will see where this all goes. Another bit of news that I think was really terrifying. There was this basically combined reporting from the Washington Post and several other places about NSO Group's Pegasus spyware software, which was used by governments and private organizations, it seems to spy on journalists, activists, people in government. The Washington Post saying is that this software successfully hacked 37 phones, including all those folks, and 2 women close to the Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi, who was murdered. So this is kind of wild because what it really seems like is that NSO Group has developed this spyware that can be installed in Android and iPhones, can be installed without the person even needing to click a link or something. Like it could be zero click. It could be a surreptitious, text message that just immediately drops spyware onto your device. It can read all of your information. It can track your location. It can trigger the microphone and video camera remotely. Basically, all the stuff we've been, kind of afraid of, and you've seen in like spy fiction, is true. This kind of goes back to just a long history of spyware and privately developed spyware, and how governments and other folks are taking advantage of it. This is going to be an ongoing story, and we're going to see where all this leads. But this reminds me a lot of the Spectre and Meltdown stories. The stuff. Sorry, not Spectre, Meltdown. But this reminds me of the stories from that Edward Snowden basically helped to promote, like the PRISM stuff and the U.S. government's widespread data tracking. It just seems like the next evolution of that whole thing. Do you have any thoughts on this, Chris?
Oh, I have so many thoughts.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're right that it's definitely like the worst nightmare. Like decades of media have like trained people to think that hacking is like can be done anywhere, any place, that a person can just remotely access your computer and completely take it over, which, you and I know for the most part is not true. Like most hacking, to say like black hat hacking is done through social engineering. Like you send people a link, you send them an email, and they end up clicking on it and putting in their login credentials without realizing what's going on. And the fact that this is zero click. Not all of it was zero click. I read the entire Amnesty International report, and it's like, first of all, I was wondering, like, should you guys even be revealing what you've noticed? Because like you're just telling them how to hide better. Because I thought what was interesting is like, it's Android and iPhone, but they were able to study more iPhones because there were more traces of this malware left behind in the systems. And we don't know if Android is less affected because it just hasn't left any traces on Android phones. I found that a little bit scary. I also, as a long-term like Windows user who's always listened to people be like, haha, I love having a Mac, I can't get viruses. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe that's true. But now we have your phones are equally as susceptible to being, bugged. because I said it was probably up to like 50,000 people. It was just the number you gave was the amount of phones they directly looked at.
Yes, it's a list of 50,000 phone numbers, so a lot of people, and that was 1,000 people who weren't actually criminals, basically, from what we know.
Yeah, the NSO has been like, oh, we only licensed this out to spy on terrorists and criminals. Yeah. But then, yeah, you see like Jamal Khashoggi's fiance and his wife were both on that list. And I don't, they're clearly not in that group. I mean, the one good thing, and this is our American privilege speaking, is that they weren't able to infiltrate American phones, or rather, I should say, phones on American networks. And a lot of that has to do, again, reading the little autopsy report or whatever you want to call it from Amnesty International, is that some of it was direct network infiltration, possibly like hardware wise, because some of the zero-click exploits were people just going to a random website like yahoo.fr that was mentioned in the article. This isn't just me shilling for our parent company here, but then it was redirecting them somewhere that was dumping the malware onto their system. Like and it wasn't even consistent. Like it would do every other access to that URL or like every few. So it was very hard to like pin down. Like it was a cannot reproduce kind of situation by keeping it just randomized. I thought that the report was great. Like that was some riveting reading, but it is terrifying to think like how widespread this is. The fact that the company's trying to be like, hey, we only license, mind you, they have to get permission from the Israeli government to sell the software.
Yes.
So that's like, I think the bigger scandal is like not just that this private company was doing this, but technically they have government approval, and it's just
And NSO says that they pull their their technology from people who are abusing it. I don't know how much we can believe that. There's also reporting that those stories about the Saudi princesses, right? Princess Latifa and her stepmother, Princess Haya, who a couple of years ago, like that was the news about them like escaping. Their names were on this list too. So that's how the Saudi government was able to find them, even though they had this really elaborate escape plan. It just sounded terrifying. Like basically, they could be tracked anywhere, or people could get full access to their phones, and there's nothing you can do. Nothing you can do from the Panopticon. One of the things mentioned in the article, and I do feel like they didn't have direct evidence of this, but there was I believe a Mexican journalist who was gunned down at a car wash while he was like waiting for his car to come through. And at least like the Washington Post noted, we don't know for sure, but it certainly seems suspicious and like likely that they might have used this software to find out where he was at that particular moment. It was, a lot of interesting things. Like, again, it's not US based. This is mostly overseas right now. Most of the compromised servers were in Germany. So I think we're going to have a long conversation with Germany in addition to Israel about this. I do worry that this is not going to go anywhere. Like it's going to be like the Panama Papers, which was a big scandal, but most people have no idea what that is, or they've completely forgotten about it at this point. Yeah. That one didn't have like a huge impact on daily life for a lot of people. But honestly, hey, after the 2016 election, the Brooklyn Public Library was running these, these talks about 1984 or reliving in 1984, basically like a weekly. I think it was a monthly discussions around the book, and I led some of those chats, with people who are well read from around Brooklyn and all over New York, and nobody had heard about the PRISM stuff. Nobody had heard about everything that Edward Snowden has helped to reveal and the government surveillance going on there. So if like that crowd, of Brooklyn Library supporters and well-read people didn't capture that major piece of news, it makes me wonder like who's actually paying attention to all this. I do want to shout out, I had a chat with the documentary director Alex Gibney in 2016 about his film 0 Days, which was about Stuxnet and the why we need to talk about cyber war. But in that conversation, he also talked about the need to we need to have some rules for this spyware, like this stuff that is being developed by these companies, because basically these are the new nuclear weapons. These are weapons that could be used to get any piece of information you want or track people immediately. And we need to really be more cautious about how this stuff is getting out there, because it is absolutely terrifying. So, we will be keeping an eye on the story. Chris, anything else you want to mention about this?
No, I'm good. Though I think with a lot of people, it's just they only care about privacy if it's inconveniencing them.
Right, right.
I mean, you look at, we all have smart speakers in our apartments at this point. And, if you told people, like that thing might still be listening to you. And like that was the fear at first, but now people can't live without having these smart speakers in their homes. So like that concern kind of faded into the ether. Even as I see evidence that maybe they are listening in. Did I tell you the story about the well thing?
No.
With my parents. I'll tell this here. I told Jordan before this call started, was that I went to my parents a few weeks ago and I was talking to them about the Manhattan well murder. I don't know how this came up in conversation. The short version for the people who are not familiar with it is that this was the first recorded murder trial in the United States.
Yeah.
This guy supposedly murdered his fiance, like they were supposed to elope, and then they found her at the bottom of a well. Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr were his defendants. I mean, the defense lawyers, which is referenced in the musical. And he was found not guilty. And the well where her body is found still exists. You can go visit it at it's a men's clothing store on Spring Street here in New York called Kohl's.
Oh boy.
You just go into the basement. There's a suit. Their murder well suit. And I'm telling my parents about this because I think it's like the funniest. It's just one of those funny New York things that you are, as I tell people, you are constantly walking over ghosts all the time.
Yeah.
And later that night, like maybe an hour or two later, I'm leaving the house. I'm saying goodbye to my mom. And I hear my father, like he opens up his laptop and he goes on YouTube. And all of a sudden I'm hearing like, Alexander Hamilton, well, Soho, murder. And I'm like, wait, is he watching a video about this? That's really nice that he was actually listening to me. And I walk over to say goodbye to him. And I'm like, oh, you actually looked it up because I mentioned it. And he's like, no, it was just in my recommended videos.
There are a lot of stories like that about people saying they've had a conversation and then like something came in, and given how deeply these companies have tracked us just with our online habits, and across sites and stuff, maybe there is something there, or at least like if Amazon is just like, we're selling some of this data for ad tracking, it's not identifiable, it's fully anonymous, but it still can be tracked back to you. I don't know. That is really curious.
Yeah, anything that's anonymous can ultimately be tracked back to people. Like I remember the app Secret, and you could post things like, "Oh, I hate my boss and I want to kill him," and you think, "Oh, it's anonymous," except that people could figure out if they unfriended a bunch of people, like they did this systematically over a week. They could usually figure out who posted what. So nothing is anonymous. Like you can figure it out. Just gotta. A little bit of social engineering. Like I have, Finstagrams, which are easy to find because Instagram is like, hey, you should check out these other accounts to all my friends. And I'm like, no, those are supposed to be secret.
All right, let's move on. We've got some fun stories to wrap all this up. So basically, billionaires are in space spewing, pollution into space. Facebook is not acknowledging its role in vaccine misinformation. Love it. And private spyware is getting more terrifying. So let's talk about some fun news. You wanted to talk about AnimeTube, which I have not heard about this Kickstarter, but it sounds hilarious.
Yeah, it's a little bit old news at this point. But I don't think it really went beyond like the Twitter community. That would be anime Twitter. It's a bunch of weebs. They are some serious nerds. It's all
I stay away from that, even though I'm wearing an Evangelion shirt right now. But I stay away from that.
Yeah, well, these are my people. I drink with them, so I'm obligated to at least like read their tweets. And so AnimeTube was a Kickstarter at the beginning of the month where I would assume these people are just fans who are unhappy with the current state of things. They don't really like Crunchyroll and High Dive and was it Nozomi? I don't remember all of the services.
They don't like paying for things? Is that the argument?
Well, that's one of the arguments, because this new service that they were touting, that they were like, oh, we're building the service from the ground up. It's everything you ever dreamed of. And of course, one of the big things is like, it's going to be free. And we're going to have all of these old shows that aren't available on Crunchyroll and Netflix and Amazon. And
we're going to bring Escaflowne back. Yeah.
Yeah. What? And they're like, and it's like, oh, hey, we need, I forget the exact amount. It was probably something like a few 100,000. I think they had raised 110,000, but the goal was like 200,000. And the thing is, every single person who was involved in the anime licensing industry knows this number doesn't pay for shit. Like it does not pay for the developers, much less pay for, they said they wanted to have thousands of titles. And they said, okay, if this is the money you're raising, like this is the amount, and this is the amount of titles you want, you are saying you're paying like $3 per title, which is not how it works. Anime licensing is incredibly expensive now. Like there's a reason why a lot of the big titles are going to Netflix and Amazon and Hulu, because they are the ones who have the money for it. Like I know that
absolutely
the people at ADV have said, like, if we could pay what we paid for Evangelion now, like that was such a bargain. That is, Evangelion and DBZ
that they milked for 2 episodes per VHS. I remember ADV. I'm not going to take your tears over here. Yeah.
Yeah, well, they're not even around anymore.
They're not.
Yeah, Funimation is the only one left, like, of the big ones from that era, really. Funimation and Viz. And mind you, Funimation and Viz had, like, parent Japanese companies supporting them up. But, yeah, so all of these people were going all over Twitter talking about how this was a bunch of bullcrap and reporting it to Kickstarter, and they eventually got it taken down. And now, of course, you get the usual, like, it very much like the conservative playbook, like all the haters signed up for our Kickstarter so they could like read our Patreon and read our backer updates and report us to Kickstarter. All these people who just don't really like anime, which is of course crap. Like the people who are reporting it are the ones who know the most about the industry and they love anime the most. And though it's been taken down from Kickstarter, they're still like blasting out on like social media about how they've been unfairly maligned and how they're going to bring it back. I wouldn't be surprised if it shows up on Indiegogo, because Indiegogo isn't as strict with its campaigns. So like, just that's where all like the Comicsgate people ended up after they got kicked off of Kickstarter. It's just, it's not great, because there is clearly a market. Like people do want better anime streaming, but it requires so much money, and all right now it's all concentrated again with like Funimation and Viz, and then you have all the streamers who are going to Japan directly. So that was basically my thing about it. It's this like insane story. The fact that this even got to $100,000 on Kickstarter, and it was a project we love on Kickstarter, apparently, because Kickstarter doesn't know crap about the stuff they're promoting.
It's I do wonder if part of it is just like I guess I'm a 90s anime fan, so it's like when I see the kids these days whining about how hard it is to access things, I just it's like, buddy, did you wait 2 months for your 3rd gen VHS fan sub of Rurouni Kenshin to come to you? No? Then please shut up. Please shut up.
I own 22 volumes of Cardcaptor Sakura on DVD. Like,
yes,
like which from Pioneer, which doesn't even do anime anymore. So yes, we all have our memories. I have my memories of going to Chinatown and buying my VHS that have like 3 episodes on them, and it's ripped off. Sometimes it's ripped off TV, sometimes it's ripped off of a VCD, and they leave the menus up, and you're just like,
absolutely, yeah. I got the Dragon Ball Z Broly movie. I remember I bought in Chinatown once, and that was an experience. That was fun, guys. You used to have to really work for your anime. Anyway, let's talk about memes. Let's talk about sad memes, specifically sad Wolverine, who will be immortalized as an action figure from Mondo. And I love this. I love this so much because as I was growing up as a 90s anime fan, I was also like a 90s X-Men the Animated Series fan. That series doesn't really hold up, but there are certainly elements of it that I think are ridiculous, and it is fun to see them kind of pop back up. The sad Wolverine meme of him laying in bed staring at a photo of Jean Grey and the interloper Scott Summers. I think it speaks to all of us, right? This was a fun one to write up, but also it's a great meme because like we're all at home staring at Instagram, just like sigh about things on our screens. Yeah,
I do love that we've gone into like this meta commentary with our toys now. Like before, you just bought a Wolverine figure because you were 10 and you just wanted to pretend to slash the Cyclops figure. And now we've gone into like this meta thing where, okay, this is a toy, but not really a toy. You're going to leave it in the box. And only people who were young between the like 91 or 92 to 95 are really going to get this joke, because I see it appear online. I never see anyone younger share it, because for them, like X-Men the animated series wasn't a thing until recently, now that you can rewatch it on Disney Plus.
Well, also like the memes, you don't have to understand the meme. You don't have to understand where it came from to understand the power of the meme, right? Like I think I see young people using it all the time and like refashioning it because it's just funny. It is a funny image of a grown man in his full yellow spandex outfit just sitting in bed. It's like Wolverine does not take off his costume to relax, I guess, but he's going to sit there and pine after Jean Grey in bed. Just like I think it speaks to like the awful animation of the animated series too. Is just like we're not gonna draw, you know, the rest of Wolverine lying down. We have a lot of this done already. So anyway, this is going to be a Comic-Con exclusive. It'll run you $200. It's going to go for pre-orders on July 23rd. So that is Friday. I could see some people really being down for this. I do think it's funny. It comes with a bunch of accessories, including different hand figures. And also there is a morph head, which I feel like the drama around Wolverine and Morph was the thing that really got me into the series. That was like first episode stuff, right? Where Morph died. Then he eventually came back. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's why I say this is definitely aimed at people of a certain age group. I mean, the fact that it's a 1/6 scale figure, which is Barbie size. So if you were that kind of person, you could open the box and you could like get a redheaded Barbie and you can put them in all sorts of poses. Like it feels
you could decapitate a Ken that looks like Scott Summers. Yeah. Yeah.
That's every Ken. Every Ken looks like Scott. Every Ken. Yeah. Like, I mean, I do think it's interesting. I mentioned to you before this that there are a lot of meme toys. Like, I think you can get a Masters of the Universe He-Man that's kind of like the what's going on video. And I own a little a dumpster fire toy. I'm going to show it on the video. Sure. Sorry about audio only people. And, you know, our colleague Nicole has the This Is Fine dog on her work desk. So there's definitely like a market for that. What's the company? YouTube's, you know, with TOOBZ. They sell like they're going to be selling a Hot Ones set. And they've sold like the Why You Always Lying guy. And of course, Lo-Fi Girl, like multiple versions of her. So there's like, and I do not think this is for young people because young people do not have that money. Like it's
the statue is for the people who both understand the meme and live through this. And I would, if I had an extra $200, I sure as hell would buy this. I love Wolverine. He was one of the first characters I like really into because there's so much pathos behind this character, right? He's immortal. He can never truly feel love. It's all these things. I am waiting for the other Wolverine meme, the one of him like in the foreground and Scott and Jean kissing in the back. Like, make that a diorama, make that a statue, because I think that would also be hilarious. Anything else you want to mention on this, Chris?
No, though you're right. That would probably make a better statue. That would be a better conversation piece because I feel like I buy this thing, I put the box on my shelf, like maybe one or two of my friends and my mother will get the joke, which again, my mom, she's in her 60s, but she loved the X-Men cartoon. So at least, so this is a toy for you, me, and my mom.
Exactly. It is. That's a show that, you know, you go back and watch Batman, the animated series, and you're like, man, the show was ahead of its time. The writing was so good. The quality of the animation, everything was fantastic. You go back and watch X-Men, the animated series, and you're like, what the hell were we thinking? This is garbage. But I still love it. You know, it's a weird feeling.
I think it holds up more than you say it does, but the animation was
the animation and also the writing. Like, so when I used to run the anime club in college, occasionally we'd pick, like we did the Phoenix episodes and stuff, and going from watching like Cowboy Bebop dubbed to this, we're like, oh man, childhood nostalgia does not hold up at all. It is hilarious though. And I'm hoping a new generation of folks discovers the insanity of that. I'm also hoping that the MCU can finally bring in X-Men. Please, for the love of God, let's bring that back. Let's move on to what we've been working on. I've been talking about the Vive Pro 2 for a while, and the Vive Focus 3. My Vive Pro 2 review is going to be going up soon, so keep an eye out on that for Engadget. I'm really digging it. This is the first 5K PC VR headset I've played, so you know, the combined resolution across both lenses gets close to 5K. It looks incredible. It's just super expensive. It is $1,400 for the entire kit, for $750 for just the headset if you have the older kit. This is for VR, like the VR faithful, the VR crazy folks. But it was really fantastic to play like an hour of Half-Life Alyx in stunning, sharp resolution. I'm just going to play that whole game again. That game's great. Chris, what are you working on?
Well, how I feel about VR, like I don't own a VR headset and I think that's an insane price, but I do know that this eventually trickles down, which is great. Like eventually me or my brother can buy like this technology. It's just going to take a few years.
I mean, you can get the Quest 2 now. You can get the Quest 2 for $299.
Yeah,
I think that's pretty good.
I think that's what my brother did. I do not know for sure. I do not keep up with his latest purchases. You know, he does watch our videos sometimes. What I'm working on, like a few things. I was going to give a shout out to, there's a new Disney Plus show that premiered this week about the attractions. It's called Behind the Attraction.
Yes.
And I got a preview of the entire season. Only half of it is actually available on Disney Plus. I actually sat down, watched every single episode, and then I watched every episode of the Imagineering story just so I could compare the two. Like
you're just hardcore here. Yeah,
I went way deeper on this than a human being.
Is the Imagineering story the one where they just like paint out all the cigarettes from Walt Disney's hands? Like that's the one that's like reworked history a little bit, right?
I'm not entirely sure. I wasn't really paying attention to that. I do note the Imagineering story was very chronological. It was like way back in the 30s when Walt Disney was with his kids at the fair, at the merry-go-round, and he couldn't join in, and he felt sad. So he come up, you know, they have this myth, because that story, from what I've heard, is bullshit. Like that did not actually happen. He was already thinking about building like Disneyland before that. But what I liked about this new show and why I recommend people watch it is it's very snackable. Like each episode is just one attraction. So you don't have to sit through like a hagiography of Walt Disney and Roy Disney, you know, Roy E and Roy O. Like you don't have to put up with that crap. It's just like, here's the Jungle Cruise. It's got animals. And of course, yes, there's a movie with The Rock, who is also the executive producer of this show. Like it is such an obvious advertisement, but it's at least one that's fun to watch. Aside from that, like working on that, I've been checking out the new Turtle Beach Recon controller, which has been announced. It just hasn't been reviewed yet. Hopefully we'll have something up coming shortly. And I've also been checking out some like designer keyboards that have been like all the rage on Kickstarter, but they're not great. They're just not great. I'm gonna say that it's the Azio makes like these really fancy like wood with like round little buttons and I know these things are hot on TikTok, and I'm not into that at all. Like you know, I'm the keyboard person at Engadget. Somehow, like I stumbled into this, and I have just stacks of keyboards next to me, and I like this. I'm like, we can do better. You can, if you want something pink or white, you know, go to Corsair. Like Corsair makes awesome looking, awesome feeling keyboards. That's my recommendation for this week.
Awesome. Let's move on to our pop culture picks. I also know you've been watching something on Netflix you wanted to shout out, right?
Yeah, I mentioned you didn't watch We the People yet, I guess.
I have not, no.
So that premiered July 1st, like just ahead of, you know, Independence Day. So, and it is a animated series. I believe like the executive producers are the Obamas. And the idea
they have some good Netflix shows already. Yeah.
The idea is basically it's like Schoolhouse Rock, but with like hip hop and pop music. And you have the best episode is Checks and Balances because it's a song. It's a song by Kirsten Anderson Lopez, you know, the Frozen and you know, Agatha All Along. Like she's a great writer. And the performers on it include Daveed Diggs and Lin-Manuel Miranda, you know, doing what they do best, rapping. And it's just amazing. It's a banger. Like I listen to it over and over and over again. But other track, like they have, you know, Adam Lambert and her. Yeah, I see like the little clip playing here. Yeah. Baby Rexha, who I have never heard of, but because I am an old. But
this seems like a good thing just to produce, just so you could like get this going around YouTube, right? Like maybe not everybody's going to tune into the Netflix thing, but make it a YouTube clip that gets really popular and maybe will filter into somebody's feed. I think is kind of smart. Yeah. I mean, it's not like the deepest look into them. These episodes are only like 3 to 4 minutes long, so they're perfect for YouTube. And it's very, I use the word snackable. I use that again. Like you can just put it on and be done in like half an hour. Though the algorithm on like Netflix doesn't quite understand that the episodes are only 3 minutes long. So you'll watch like 5 episodes and it's like, are you still watching? Are you still watching? I'm just like, yes, I'm still watching. You asked me that 5 minutes ago. But it's really nice and moving, and it's like a quick hit. If you want to feel like American pride in this era of like just utter chaos, like it's nice. It's a little too optimistic for my taste sometimes. Like they have one of the shorts has a very diverse like male, female, multiple race Supreme Court, and I'm just like, yeah. Oh, one day, yeah. 100 years from now. we'll get there. Shout out to the Obamas, I think, for doing really interesting things with their all these media deals. I'm also a big fan of Waffles and Mochi, which is the kids food show that actually teaches kids quite a lot about food, and adults too. Like my wife is learning stuff from this, but my daughter loves to cook with me, so she is really down with Waffles and Mochi. I want to shout out a couple of things. This Way Up on Hulu, which is a series that just came back for its second season. This is a series created by, just getting down to the cast list here, by Aisling Bey, co-starring Sharon Horgan. Aisling Bey plays, at the very beginning of the first episode, she is a woman who's coming out of a mental institution, basically, after having a breakdown. Sharon Horgan's her sister, who's trying to help her out through life. And it's a really fun, it's more of a dramedy, I guess, but it's a comedy with drama elements. It's a really funny show. I love their relationship together. Has a lot of people I like in it too, like Indira Varma. And it's just really sweet. It is a really sweet story about like these two sisters who are trying to support each other. And then almost like their life situations start to change a little bit too. Like as one starts to get more grounded, the other starts to lose herself. I'm really digging it. And also it's like one of those like 22-minute long episode shows that you can snack pretty easily. So yeah, shout out to This Way Up on Hulu. I'm really digging it, and I'd recommend it to everybody. Another thing I just want to quickly say is like I've seen A Quiet Place Part 2. It's good. It's fine. I have a lot of issues with it. I feel like, man, John Krasinski of all people, has proven himself to be a really capable horror / action set piece director. But I'm beginning to lose. I don't really understand these people as humans anymore. I'm not going to spoil too much, but we reviewed it on my podcast, the Filmcast. So you could go check out my full review there. Have you seen this yet, Chris?
I have not seen part 2. Oh, congratulations on spinning off.
Yes,
with the Filmcast.
we've spun off. No more Slash, and also new theme song upcoming. So that's going to be fun. I'll talk about that in a bit. This is streaming on Paramount Plus right now, or you could rent it or whatever. I kind of like Paramount Plus, even though it's not a thing that most people would be watching, mainly because it has all the Robert and Michelle King shows. So like Evil and The Good Fight and everything. More for that than the Star Trek stuff for me. But I'd recommend watching this. It's just it's really short. I feel like it doesn't give us a good sense of the world. And it's one of those movies where like plot conveniences really make the characters' lives pretty easy at times, even though it's about living through a post-apocalyptic hellscape. But anyway, it's well made, worth a watch. That's A Quiet Place Part 2. Anything else you want to shout out, Chris, before we wrap things up?
Well, I did want to ask, one of the things I liked about the original Quiet Place was that I actually thought it was good for a kid's first horror movie. Like if you wanted to introduce your kid to horror movies, that's a good movie because there's no gore in it. There's no bad language. The protagonists include two children.
It's very straightforward. Yeah. I think like it depends on your kid, but I think for like maybe a 7 or 8 year old, sure, it could be a good thing. And the kids like once again have a more prominent role. I feel like this one is a little like you see more of the monsters. Like in the first movie, the monsters were mostly out of view until towards the end. Whereas here's like they assume you know what the monsters are, right? So you see them. I think there are some bits that are really harrowing and kind of scary. So 8 or 10 year olds maybe, but I don't know. I don't know what a kid's first horror movie is because I was watching, really scary stuff when I was really young and there were no rules when I was growing up. So I don't know. What was the earliest horror movie you could remember, Chris?
That I can remember was probably the 80s Night of the Living Dead, which okay. I was like 5 or 6 and I had nightmares after that, because I should not have watched that. I should not have watched the movie where like hearts get ripped out and like ears get bitten off and, send more cops and all that. What made it worse was that I was staying at my grandmother's house at the time in Puerto Rico and she lives down the street from a cemetery.
Ooh, yeah.
So I hated zombies until I was 30. Just to give you like how big of a mistake this ended up being. Letting me watch this movie was a terrible mistake. Like it wasn't until The Walking Dead premiered that I was like, zombies aren't that bad.
They're not. Well, yeah, because The Walking Dead doesn't make them that scary. But yeah, I hear you. I think for me, it may have been The Fly, which I think counts as horror. That's like a bit of body horror, but that is a messed up movie. Like I think the things that really get me more than like gore or anything or violence. It's just like deeply troubling situations, like a man who's slowly being turned into a fly and nobody can help him. Like stuff like that. Just like really, ooh. Anyway, I love that movie. It was great. And really watching horror early on really helped shape my worldview. Certainly reading dystopian sci-fi has prepared me for quite a lot. Thank you so much, Chris, for joining me on this episode. Where can we find your stuff on the internet? Where can people follow you?
Well, for the most part, you can find me on Twitter at Chris Naudus. That's Chris with a K, so KrisNaudus. Otherwise, I'm at Engadget. Occasionally post on Yahoo, and I also got some stuff in the hopper right now, like some magazine articles and everything. So I'm super excited about that. I'll let people know more about it once it actually publishes. I have not seen my name in print for over a decade, so I'm actually feeling kind of giddy because I'm old, and that is a big deal to me.
Hey, names in print. I've never seen that. I think the closest thing I got is getting articles syndicated to the New York Times back in the day, but that was still just the website. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me, Chris, and hope to have you back on the podcast soon. Let's wrap things up here. Our theme music is by game composer Dale North. Our outro music is by our very own managing editor, Terrence O'Brien. The podcast is produced by Ben Ellman. You can find me online at @TheVindra on Twitter and, elsewhere. I am at thefilmcast.com for my movie podcast, so check that out. And email us at podcast@engadget.com. Leave us a review on iTunes and subscribe on anything that gets podcasts, including Spotify. Thank you so much, folks. We're out.
Thank you.